I lost 3 babies. The doctors told me it was my fault. My body was failing, and my heart was broken into a million pieces. But my mother-in-law told me to stop being so dramatic. So I did the one thing they never expected. I decided to find out the truth. My name is Chloe, my husband, Mark, and I had what everyone called a perfect life. A beautiful home in the suburbs, great jobs, and so much love. All we wanted was to fill our home with the sound of little feet. We dreamed about it constantly, but that dream became a nightmare. I got pregnant and we were over the moon. At 10 weeks, I started spotting. I was put on bed rest. I did everything the doctor said. But one terrible Tuesday, I lost the baby. We were devastated, but we tried to be strong. The doctor said it was common. It was nature's way. So we picked ourselves up and tried again. The second time, we were more cautious. We didn't tell anyone until after the first trimester. We thought we were safe. I was so careful: no caffeine, prenatal vitamins, gentle yoga. At 16 weeks, I felt a cramp while folding laundry. A deep, seizing pain. We rushed to the hospital. But it was too late. The grief this time was a physical weight. It was suffocating. My husband, Mark, was my rock, but I could see the pain in his eyes, too. He internalized it, trying to be strong for me. After extensive testing, the doctors found nothing wrong with either of us. Unexplained recurrent pregnancy loss, they called it. It's a diagnosis that feels less like an answer and more like a sentence. We decided to try one last time. This pregnancy, we were a ball of nerves. We didn't even furnish the nursery. We were too scared, and then my mother-in-law, Barbara, moved in. She said it was to help me since Mark was traveling a bit for work. To take the stress off. At first, I was grateful. But her help felt different. It felt controlling. She'd make comments. "You need to be stronger for this baby, Chloe," or "My pregnancies were so easy." I worked in the fields up until the day I gave birth. She'd watch everything I ate, criticizing a piece of cheese or a sip of iced tea. Then, at 14 weeks, it happened again. The cramps. The rush to the ER, the devastating silence on the ultrasound. This third loss broke me. I felt like my body was a tomb. The grief was a black hole and I was falling into it. And that's when I overheard Barbara on the phone with her sister. I was walking past the kitchen and I heard her say, "I don't know what she's doing wrong. Maybe she's just not cut out for this. It's so hard on my Mark." Something in those words. They didn't sit right. It wasn't sympathy. It was accusation. A few days later, I was spiraling, reading medical journals online. And I came across a case, a rare one, about environmental factors. About toxins. A cold, sick feeling settled in my stomach. It was a crazy thought. An insane thought. But the grief and desperation made it stick. The next day, while Barbara was at her book club, I drove to an electronics store an hour away. I bought a small, hidden nanny cam. It looked like a USB charger. My hands shook as I set it up in the kitchen outlet, pointing right at the counter where she made my morning smoothie every day. I felt insane. I felt guilty. What was I doing? But that night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up the camera's feed on my laptop, my heart pounding in my ears. I fast-forwarded through the day, seeing nothing but the normal comings and goings. And then I saw it. The next morning, after Mark had left for work, Barbara was in the kitchen humming. She was making my daily prenatal smoothie. The one she insisted was full of healthy greens. I watched her add the spinach, the banana, the almond milk. And then, she paused. She looked over her shoulder toward the hallway. The coast was clear. She reached into the pocket of her robe and pulled out a small, unlabeled bottle of tincture. Her hands were quick, practiced. She unscrewed the dropper and added several drops into my smoothie. She stirred it quickly, poured it into a glass, and brought it to me with a smile. "Good for the baby," she'd always say. My blood ran cold. I felt like I was going to be sick. I immediately called my doctor, describing what I'd seen. He told me to bring the smoothie and the bottle immediately. I had to wait until the next day. I pretended to have a migraine and stayed in my room. The next morning, I secretly took the glass she gave me, poured it into a thermos, and when she went to the bathroom, I snatched the bottle from her robe pocket. I drove to the lab like a woman possessed. The results took a week. The longest week of my life. My doctor called me into his office. His face was grim. The tincture, he said, was a powerful herbal supplement. One of its known but not widely publicized effects was that it could cause severe uterine contractions and was an absolute contraindication during pregnancy. It was often used in other cultures to induce labor. Barbara, in her twisted, old-world belief system, thought my body was too weak to carry a baby to term. She believed this herbal tonic would strengthen my womb and prepare it for labor. She had been secretly dosing me for weeks. She had, with her ignorant, meddling hands, caused the last 2 miscarriages. The rage and grief that washed over me were unlike anything I've ever felt. It was a hurricane of emotion. I went home. I didn't say a word. I just played the video for Mark on my laptop. I watched the color drain from his face. I watched his hands curl into fists. I watched him break down and sob on the floor of our bedroom. The betrayal was absolute. We confronted her together. The denial was swift and vicious. She called me a liar, a manipulator. But when Mark showed her the video on the screen, her face just collapsed. She didn't even understand the magnitude of what she had done. It was just a tonic, she cried. My grandmother gave it to all the women in our village. I was trying to help you. We told her to pack her bags. She was out of our house and our lives that afternoon. The path forward has been the hardest part. The grief for the children we lost is now mixed with a terrible, complicated anger. Mark is in therapy, grappling with the fact that his mother destroyed our family. We are in couples counseling, trying to rebuild a foundation of trust that was shattered not by an affair but by a horrific familial betrayal. We've pressed charges. It's a slow, grueling legal process. We don't know if we'll ever try to have a child again. The fear is too deep. The trust in the world is too broken. I'm sharing this story because I want you to know, trust your intuition. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Even when everyone tells you you're being dramatic, even when you feel crazy, you might be the only one seeing the truth. My desperate, grief-stricken act of putting a camera in my own home saved me from a lifetime of blaming myself. It gave me the horrible, painful, but necessary truth, and that truth, no matter how devastating, is the only thing that can ever set you free.